Walk into certain preschool classrooms in Japan, and the difference becomes noticeable almost immediately. 4-year-olds quietly organizing materials, children waiting patiently without being told twice, entire classrooms staying focused during long activities with remarkably few behavioral interruptions. For many visiting educators, the experience feels almost unsettling, because in many other parts of the world, attention spans among young children appear to be shrinking rapidly. Teachers across multiple countries have increasingly reported problems involving distraction, impulsive behavior, emotional instability, and difficulty maintaining focus among young children. Yet inside some Japanese classrooms, the atmosphere feels completely different, calmer, quieter, almost unusually disciplined for children so young. So what explains this difference? Why do many Japanese children appear more emotionally regulated, patient, and socially aware at such an early age? According to child development researchers, the answer may have less to do with intelligence and more to do with what happens during the first 5 years of life, a period when the human brain develops faster than it ever will again. During those early years, the brain forms millions of neural connections every second, connections responsible for attention, emotional control, learning, some memory, and social behavior, which means the environment surrounding a child during those years may shape the developing brain far more deeply than most people realize. And this is where Japanese parenting becomes particularly interesting, because many traditional parenting habits in Japan appear quietly designed around emotional regulation, patience, independence, routine, and social awareness. Not through harsh punishment, not through constant pressure. It begins with something surprisingly simple: independence. One of the first things many Japanese children learn is independence, and often much earlier than people from other cultures expect. In Japan, even very young children are commonly encouraged to carry their own belongings, organize their materials, prepare simple things independently, and solve small problems without immediate adult intervention. To outsiders, this can sometimes appear unusually advanced, especially when young children are seen walking to school alone, using public transportation independently, or completing responsibilities without constant supervision. But psychologists believe these small moments of independence may have long-term neurological effects. Because when children are allowed to solve manageable problems on their own, the brain gradually develops stronger confidence, adaptability, and emotional resilience. Instead of immediately removing every difficulty from a child's life, many Japanese parents allow small struggles to happen naturally. And over time, the child begins learning something extremely important: I can handle discomfort. Researchers sometimes refer to this process as developing self-efficacy, the belief that a person is capable of handling challenges independently. One of the first lessons many Japanese children learn is emotional regulation. Japanese parenting also places unusual importance on emotional control. Public emotional outbursts are often gently discouraged from an early age, not through fear, not through intimidation, but through social awareness. Children are taught to notice how their behavior affects people around them, and rather than constantly expressing every emotion outwardly, many children are encouraged to develop patience, observation, and self-control. Researchers sometimes describe this as collective emotional awareness, the ability to emotionally regulate oneself while remaining conscious of the group environment. And studies suggest children who develop emotional regulation early often demonstrate stronger attention control and decision-making ability later in life. One famous example, often discussed internationally, occurred after the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Journalists covering the disaster were surprised by how calmly many children waited in lines for food and supplies, despite the surrounding. Another major factor is routine and stability. Many Japanese families follow highly structured daily schedules, regular meal times, regular sleep schedules, regular school preparation. And while this may sound simple, modern neuroscience suggests predictable routines may play a much larger role in childhood development than most people realize, because consistent routines help reduce uncertainty and stress inside the developing brain. And lower stress levels are strongly connected to improved concentration, emotional stability, memory retention, and behavioral regulation. Pediatric sleep researchers have also found that children with stable sleep routines often perform better emotionally and academically compared to children with irregular schedules, which may explain why in many parts of the modern world, childhood has become increasingly overstimulating. Bright screens, fast entertainment, constant digital stimulation. Children today consume more information, sounds, and visual input than any previous generation in human history. And according to some psychologists, developing brains may not be adapting well to that environment. Several studies have suggested that excessive stimulation during early childhood may affect attention span, impulse control, emotional regulation, and sleep quality over time, which makes certain parenting approaches in Japan particularly interesting to researchers. And the last, but not the least lesson, is responsibility and community. In many Japanese schools, children clean classrooms, organize supplies, serve lunches, and complete responsibilities together daily, not as punishment, but as part of normal life. These habits quietly teach cooperation, discipline, awareness of others, and responsibility toward the group. And according to developmental psychologists, repeated social responsibility during childhood may strengthen long-term emotional maturity and empathy. In many ways, Japanese parenting appears less focused on raising exceptional individuals and more focused on raising emotionally balanced, socially responsible human beings. Ending. Of course, no parenting system is perfect. Japan itself faces criticism involving academic pressure, emotional suppression, and strict social expectations. But despite those criticisms, researchers around the world continue paying close attention to how Japanese families approach early childhood, because beneath the routines, discipline, and calm environments, there may be a deeper philosophy hiding underneath it all. A belief that childhood is not simply preparation for academic success, but the foundation for emotional stability, self-control, social awareness, discipline, and of course, no parenting system is perfect. Japan itself faces criticism involving academic pressure, emotional suppression, and strict social expectations. But despite those criticisms, researchers around the world continue paying close attention to how Japanese families approach early childhood. Because beneath the routines, discipline, and calm environments, there may be a deeper philosophy hiding underneath it all. A belief that childhood is not simply preparation for academic success, but the foundation for emotional stability, self-control, social awareness, discipline, and lifelong behavior. Because during the first 5 years of life, small daily habits may quietly shape the architecture of the human brain itself.